The banking stocks or banking index is one of the most profitable investments you can make in 2026. But there's a particular stock or index that people are not looking at. And it's undergoing the same reforms that the banking stock went through, and they are making profit for their investors. And that's the insurance index or the insurance stock. So today we'll be discussing 4 insurance stocks you can actually invest in, and you make profit as though you're investing in the banking stocks. My name is Providence. Welcome to Clockwise. Now, like I do it here often, my guest is here, and you don't need introduction. He doesn't need any introduction any longer. So with a resounding virtual round of applause, welcome Mr. Kanye. Welcome to Clockwise.
Thank you very much for having
me. Today we are talking about something very, very spectacular. Why I call it spectacular? Because prior to this time, the insurance stocks were seen as penny stocks. Majority of them were seen as penny stocks. Before we get there, let's talk about something very, very strange. What is happening in insurance stocks? Is it because of the recapitalization?
Yes. I had mentioned something the last time we were on the podcast. Said 2 things drive insurance. Number 1, there is a planned recapitalization. But before I get to the recapitalization, normally you know that anytime you have inflow of capital, especially foreign portfolio investments into the market, you expect the insurance sector to be one of the beneficiaries. I've told you, and I would say it again and again, investors, professional investors, do not engage in any investment without taking out an insurance policy against that investment. And the reason is because if anything happens, and I mean, think about when this Nigeria, there are political risk, there are financial risk, there's market risk, there are so many kinds of risks in Africa as a whole and in Nigeria in particular. So it will be foolhardy for you to come into a country like Nigeria to invest without insurance. So guess who are the underwriters in some of the insurance companies, some insurance names that you think of? These guys, they get premium. So sometimes the way insurance business works is if you keep on paying premiums, if it turns out that those risks don't actually are not realized, then you get to keep the insurance.
Okay.
Now, if you observe what has been happening, essentially since 2024, 2025, we've had some very remarkable reforms in the markets, in around FX, around the general economic reforms. We've had a bunch of them, so that has kind of reduced the real risk. I have what I call the real risk, which is, I mean, someone who come and said political risk, market risk, and all of those risks. But what is the real risk? The real risk is actually what is on ground. Okay. Someone coming, for example, let's say there's a bomb blast in Borno State. People in Lagos can start fearing, and then they price that risk in. Okay. But in reality, it might be a neglected kind of risk event. So the real risk, when you have the difference between the real risk and the perceived risk, is the arbitrage that insurance companies.
We've seen some insurance stock have their share price at 1 naira, some even 2 naira, which makes them penny stocks. Some of them penny stocks. And you say okay, penny stocks are good for day traders because any small or slight shift in price can actually dip the price or increase the price. And traders, especially day traders, usually prefer stocks like this. Now, with what you're saying, we are seeing a large chunk of liquidity coming into the sector. Does it mean that this particular stock will move from being a penny stock to other more established stocks? So,
which takes me to the second thing that I just mentioned, the inflow of capital, inflow of investments, these 2 events allow insurance stocks or insurance companies to make better margins. The next thing is the recapitalization. Okay. Let me tell you something. Why you see the banks moving very meteorically, crazy numbers, is because of the recapitalization. Because what does recapitalization do? It improves investor confidence. Yep. The chances, for example, I mean, if like 10 or 20 years ago, banks' recapitalization target under the Soludo governorship of the CBN was 25 billion. 25 billion, yeah. Now it's what? 500 billion.
For international banks.
Think about it, for international banks. That's about 20 times That's about 20 times larger. So when that happens, that recapitalization brings the investor confidence that this place is positioned to really grow. The same thing with insurance. With recapitalization, insurance companies are able to underwrite larger risks. And the reality is that the larger the risk you're able to underwrite, the larger the premiums, and the larger the premiums, the larger your returns, your revenue.
Okay, I mean, we are trying to see a robust.
So it means that some of those companies, insurance companies, would transit from being penny stocks to being actual where you can.
Now, let's look at the list. If, for instance, now you want to invest based on what you've known now, the information you have, and the projection as an analyst. What are those stocks, 4 stocks that you think you can invest in?
So the first one will be, and I like to talk with looking at the charts actually. Name Insurance PLC.
Okay,
it's going to be a very serious name. I mean, if you look at the charts, like I told you, it has actually done, for me, this is actually what I call, it plays in 2 positions. It plays in dividend and as well as growth. So when you look at dividends and growth, so that means that investors that are chasing dividends would see this stock as a good play. Investors that are chasing growth would also see this as a good play. If you look at, I mean, for name, they have a strong underwriting discipline. If you look at their balance sheet, it's been rock solid, and then the stock price has been doing very well. Dividends that have actually been growing in terms of dividend payout, because I mean, most of the people on this channel, I mean, we see in the comments that most of them are
dividend driven.
They're very, very seriously dividend driven. And I pulled a few stats on names payment, in names insurance payment. 2023 was 30 cents, 30 kobo. 2024 was 60 kobo. 2025 was 1 naira, and then 2026 is, they have already declared that they already have as much as 1.5 or 1 naira 50 kobo. You can see the graduation in terms of dividend growth. So if you are a dividend chaser, then name is a name that you want to look at. If you are also a growth guy, because I mean, we have a bunch of people that also hunt for growth. I'm a value investor, so I value growth so much. I'm split so much in between value and growth. It's not that I don't do dividend, but for me,
investment should be a long term.
Since I look at investment as a long-term thing, so I lean towards growth more than dividends, really. Though I still do dividends, I have dividend stock portfolio. So we've had 2024 name actually did, in terms of growth, stock price appreciation 74%. In 2025, they did name insurance did, you ready? 145%. Yes.
From 24%.
From 74% in 2024 and 145% in 2025.
That's like 2x.
That's almost 2x.
Okay.
If you accumulate both, if you do both of the put them both of this, nearly 3x. Okay. Because the other one was the 145 is actually put on the 140. That is on the 74 that was made. Okay. So that is a kind of stock, and the reason is because, like I told you, they have a strong underwriting. When investors are looking at insurance companies, how much can you underwrite? Because, like I told you, the more you can underwrite, the more the premiums you can get, and that also improves your revenue. If you are able to manage your downside risk, then your margins expand considerably.
Okay, so name is number 1 for you.
So name is number 1 for me.
Okay.
Then another one, which this one I call it the blue chip of the insurance space, is Custodian.
Is it bigger than Answer Mansa?
Is it
bigger than Answer Mansa?
Nah. When we talk about it, in terms of asset, is big. It's very big. Name is in terms of market capitalization, but Custodian is in terms of assets.
Okay.
So I pay very close attention to assets, and there's a reason. By the way, if you look at, just before I leave name, if you look at the stock is at a point it's consolidating now, so it's a place that you can actually decide to take an entry. Then for Custodian investment for me is a blue chip, because it's the largest when it comes to assets. Name is largest in terms of market capitalization. So you want to look at, and then it appeals both to dividend players and those who are chasing return on equity. So, because for me, I always look at the fact that, yes, you can say, okay, which also ties back to what I said in the last podcast. Some people would say, I'm leaning so much towards dividends, but you come into a market, 200 naira of as a stock price, and then you buy just because you want to get the 45 naira dividend or 30 naira dividend, and then you end up selling at 150 naira. You have lost 50 naira and you have gained 30 naira. What is the absolute return? Minus 20. So that's why sometimes we need to be very wary of when we talk about dividends. We have to balance both and understand. Especially, we really encourage people to be long-term investors, so that because at the end of the day, you realize that it's about all of these gains are actually paper gains until you sell. But paper gains means that you can actually sell it and get your returns, not the cover that you get every single time. So, in terms of performance, Custodian has done very well. If you look at the charts are doing crazy numbers. If you ask me, they have done very well. Custodian has done very well in terms of generating that return on equity.
Okay.
I am very, very big on this. And in fact, this one is actually where I lean to so much when it comes to dividend stocks. You can actually look at this because the focus have not really done so many people so much good this year because of for obvious reasons, and we've discussed this in the previous podcast. But you can actually look at some of these insurance names. These guys are flying so much under the radar. Nobody talks about them. If you look at, in fact, nobody really talks about them.
Yeah, people feel that it's
But I think and by the way, I think that the reason why we have this is because the noise is concentrated in the banks. But where do you make the alpha? It is when you invest in names that are flying under the radar and then gain when it appreciates. The insurance recapitalization is actually in the pipeline. It's coming very soon. And when that happens, you now begin to see explosive charts like the one I showed, the one I showed you before we started. So there's no need for you to wait until that happens, because at that point the alpha is gone. So rather you want to invest ahead of time. And so for me, I look at this as, if you're able to put 20% growth, 80% dividend is very big on dividends.
Okay, that's number two.
That's number two. Then the next one is the one we have actually mentioned on this channel before, which is ICU Insurance.
Yeah.
But ICU is my number three because I'm looking at the first one was the largest in market capitalization, the largest in terms of, or the best in terms of underwriting discipline. Then the next one, which is Cornerstone, was the biggest when it comes to or Custodian, which was my biggest when it comes to assets. Because I believe that the more assets a business has, if it can maintain that discipline in terms of underwriting, especially for insurance companies, there's a very strong correlation between the asset quality and the margins that you can actually get. ICU is also a name that I like so much. I've actually called it on this channel before. They actually very, very, I like the spread that ICU Insurance have. And that actually shows up in the chart. If you look at the chart, it is actually delivered very good return on equity. Beyond return on equity, it has also done a lot in terms of dividends. It's been very consistent, actually. I've pulled off some numbers. Though some people say two kobo is not. But if you're able to pay consistently, and it's actually been growing. 2022 it was 2 kobo. 2023 was 3 kobo. 2024 it was 5 kobo. 2025 it was 7 kobo, and then this year it's actually 12 kobo. Okay. So, what does that tell you? It tells you that there's that growth. There's that growth, and those paltry numbers are actually compensated for by the performance it's had. If you look at the chart and then you draw out your year to date, you see that it has actually done okay. 2024 it did 79%, and already in 2025 it blew out strongly 165%.
Okay, all right.
So those are names that actually, even if you are chasing return on equity, last year you would have gone home with 165%. By the way, there has been a consolidated weeks of consolidation, meaning that it's still an opportunity for you to buy the breakout. I think for this one, we'll have to put out the chart so that you can see what it is. And for me, this one is more of a growth play than a dividend play. I mean, 12 couple people would say that doesn't make any sense. But there's something you should also see. We're talking about dividend yield. I mean, this stock is trading at 4 naira. So 12 couple is not. And by the way, how much did they make in terms of return? I think it's 16 naira, 16 couple. 16 kobo per share, that's what they made in terms of returns, and they are paying out 12 kobo. I think that's a good payout if you ask me.
The last one.
So the last one for me would be Cornerstone. Cornerstone is because whenever I'm looking at the portfolio, I always like to put in in terms of conservative plays, name and name. I'm not going to call ICO is not such a conservative play compared to Cornerstone is actually the one that we're looking at now. But in terms of Custodian and name, those are more conservative play. That means if you're a very conservative person, you want to go for those two names. But I always like to bring in something that is high risk, high growth to balance the portfolio. There's something we call the Sharpe ratio. So these other guys will make the portfolio not to be so volatile. But Cornerstone is more volatile, but it has a higher risk and a higher return. Okay. So if you want to balance your portfolio, you have to introduce something like that. It actually helps to ensure that because it has a greater upside. If you look at some of these other names, they have actually, though we still expect an explosion when the insurance recapitalization eventually happens. But I mean, if you look at the upside to the top two names, there are some other names that have greater upside, but again they have higher risk. Okay. Because the two names, the name and the name insurance and the custodian investment, they already have large balance sheets. They have established distribution. So investors have already priced in most of these goodies into their stock price. I mean, as you are looking at this, you can also look at their charts, because their charts are quite good. The Cornerstone has a higher volatility. Okay. So for people like you that like to trade.
So I wanted to talk about their volatility first.
Yes.
Okay. Now, what do you say about their volatility? All of them.
That's what I'm saying. Name is not as volatile. In fact, if I'm to put them for all the four names I've mentioned, if I'm put them in a line, then you have name is, when you talk about least volatile, I think name is there, and then Cornerstone is on this other side.
Okay, end to end.
End to end. Okay. Then in between you have ICO Insurance, and ICO Insurance leans more towards. In fact, sometimes intraday you can have literally up, down. Okay. If you look at the charts, I mean, even if you look at the daily or the weekly, that's what you see. But Custodian leans more towards the very conservative side, okay, which is less volatile than.
Now, the biggest event you're actually expecting in the Nigerian stock market is the listing of Dangote Refinery. That's the biggest event you're expecting, and I think everybody's positioning just to take advantage of that particular listing. Now, I want to see the place of insurance or insurance stocks in that listing. What part would they play?
Okay, so we had said that some of the things that will come out of that listing would be, number one, remember, it will attract a lot of foreign portfolio investors. Yeah. And foreign portfolio investors would want to, a lot of them have policies with foreign players. But foreign players would not feel very comfortable trying to do it on their own. They would want to partner with local insurance companies to provide that, because these guys understand the risk, the real risk, and even the perceived risk. They understand all of these things. So it means that if the market explodes, the foreign portfolio investors will come. There are some markets. There are some market sizes that some foreign portfolio investors cannot come in because the liquidity is low. As the liquidity improves, it actually begins to attract them. S&P, we moved from B minus to B positive. We are now frontier market on the frontier market index for FTSE Russell. These are two big events that will bring in billions of dollars into the Nigerian exchange group. That would also come in along with demands for insurance policies as they try to ensure that they manage risk as they invest in the Nigerian economy. But particularly, insurance providers in the energy space, are going to benefit disproportionately because there is going to be, you see what is happening to Seplat, Aradel, and we're going to have more as Dangote improves. This is just 650,000 capacity. Then you're going to have, it's going to expand to, it's a modular refinery, so it can expand to 1 million, 2 million. As that happens, more players will come into the upstream to ensure that they service the supply, that demand. That means you are going to also have more insurance policies for these players.
All right. Now let's look at the list again. Your first one, number one, was what?
The most volatile is Cornerstone.
Okay.
Then you have ICO, and then you have Custodian, and then the least volatile is NIM.
All right. We'll still keep an eye on them and watch them and see how.
And then there's a name that
energy.
Someone actually mentioned. I showed you the price action on that stuff. If you want to go into the offer, you can go in. It's currently trading at 8 naira, and the offer is 3 naira 20 kobo.
But be conscious of the volatility.
But be conscious because earnings actually for that name has been dwindling. It was about 1.2 billion in 2024, and that dwindled to 689 million naira in 2025.
Okay.
That earnings decline is something. Remember what I mentioned? Stocks that I said you should run away from. But there is a turnaround. Read the prospectus. There's a prospectus for that investment. Before you go in, please read the prospectus.
And also speak with your advisor.
And speak with the advisor.
Yeah.
But read the prospectus. If you are on Carrywise, I think Carrywise lists.
Okay.
It's actually by Meristem registrars, but Carrywise also lists that in that particular offer. Okay. So you want to look at the prospectus, ensure that it resonates with your investment thesis.
All right.
Before you go.
All right. Thank you very much. Like we always say, we are not investment advisors. We're just discussing our experience in the stock market. So before you do any investment, you speak to your investment advisor, or you actually do your personal research to help you very much. Thank you for coming.
You're welcome.
And we'll do this again. Now, on that note, we'll come to the end of today's episode of Clockwise. Now, please do not forget to like, subscribe, and put on the notification bell on this channel because of the amazing content we bring. And also, if you want to join our community where we can show you how to do your personal research before you do your investment, or you want to speak to an advisor personally, there's a link on our profile page, a Telegram link. You can actually click through and to bring you straight to our community. We can have a one-on-one conversation. We can actually have a personal conversation. And on that note, we'll end today's episode, and I'll see you again. My name is Providence. I'll see you again.